Time is 3:11.
We're here at the Tony's in Bedford Studios.
You got myself Dealer here.
Coolhand.
And Doc.
And Mickey on the ones and twos.
Howdy.
We start off this week talking about the National Football League.
Boy, it has been a crazy season, hasn't it?
Sure has.
And it's only week 4.
I mean, the Browns actually won a game. The Eagles are terrible. The Packers aren't playing very well. Aaron Rodgers is hurt. The Patriots aren't playing very well.
Fucking Cowboys are sucked, man.
And the Chicago Bears went beast mode on the poor old Tampa Bay Bucks.
You mean Trubisky threw for 6 touchdowns in a game?
God,
I thought that was a career for him.
Just the other day, Mahomes threw for 6 touchdowns, too.
Yeah, but, you know, he's a Red Raider, so a Texas Tech Red Raider at that, so he does these kind of things. I'm a little partial. I'm a Texas Tech Red Raider alum, so.
You got other things like Jacksonville, 3-1, and they take on the Chiefs next week too, who are 4-0.
Oh, that's going to be an unbelievable game. I cannot wait for that game. I definitely took Pat Mahomes out of my starting roster though for my fantasy football and put in Matt Ryan. But
ooh, bet you're regretting that one.
No, I'm doing it this week. Okay. And Matt Ryan's actually the number 2 fantasy quarterback, so it's 1A or 1B for me at this point.
That's fair. And when we talk about offense here, but how we flip to defense, the defense of the Green Bay Packers, they're the only team that made sure that no one put up any points on them.
Total shutout.
Yeah, except for the 3 weeks before that, they got a roughing the passer call that almost cost them the game.
For 3 weeks straight. Cost us 2 games, actually.
Oh, you a Packers fan over here?
Oh, diehard Packers fan. But that game against Buffalo was actually pretty good. They had 7 sacks, I think, on Josh Allen, and another couple forced turnovers and a fumble. It was good defense for once because Green Bay hasn't had that in a long time.
Well, the Bills are kind of a joke. I know they beat the Vikings, but the Vikings don't know why. The Vikings beat the Vikings. The Bills beat the Vikings.
Do the Vikings know what kind of team they're going to be this year? Because at this point, I think all bets are off.
I don't think the Vikings know where they are right now. Is this Minnesota? I thought we were playing, what? Where am I?
They're playing like the Cleveland Browns.
No. The Browns have just as many victories.
I feel really bad to be a Vegas bookie right now.
Oh, you mean the people who actually know what's going on in this in this world? Somehow, it's always around that number.
House will always win.
They know what they're doing.
What about Dallas being undefeated at home this season?
And winless on the road?
I think the problem with Dallas is their QB. That's really what it comes down to be.
Is it inconsistencies or just not being able to throw downfield, or?
Well, he can't even throw downfield. He has nobody downfield to throw to. All his receivers are under 6 feet tall, damn near.
It's true, but Allen Hurns can play. But the rest of the guys are a bunch of schmucks so far.
It's not like there's no one for them to choose from. There is a guy sitting out in free agency right now that knows the Cowboys very well.
Yeah, but you can't bring him back after all the things he said, Snake Lee, and I mean, he basically said they betrayed him, that everybody in that locker betrayed him, or at least certain people in that locker room betrayed him. You can't go back to a place that you were betrayed.
Do you think Jerry wants him back?
I think Jerry didn't want to let him go in the first place.
But now, do you think Jerry would go for him?
I mean, they did go watch the Beyonce concert together, but...
Whoa.
Yeah, y'all didn't hear about that? Oh, yeah, him and...
No.
Jerry Jones and him went and watched the Beyonce Jay-Z concert that was at AT&T. He was sitting in his box with him.
I think that if Jerry Jones really wanted him to play for the Cowboys, he'd be on the team. Maybe it's just a stunt and he'll be back next year.
Maybe it gives Dez a chance to get his mind right. I think he's been really getting in his own head for the last couple years, and this gets him a chance to really refocus what he needs to focus on instead of, thinking that he always has a spot.
Well, so what are we talking about here with some other teams like the New England Patriots?
They did lay the wood to Miami this last weekend, which was a big deal. They really needed that win because they would have been down 3 games to the Dolphins at that point if they'd lost. So.
Yeah, that's a divisional game too, so that was really, really big for them. But the key thing for the Patriots is they started out slow, but they're getting their weapons back. They got Julian Edelman back, who their receivers were in and out, suspended. And that running game with Sonny is looking good now. New England finally seems to have a solid running back there, at least for the past couple weeks.
And don't forget about the great Josh Gordon.
Oh, yeah, Josh Gordon caught Tom Brady's 500th touchdown pass. Tom Brady has now thrown a touchdown pass to 71 different receivers in his NFL career.
Not including Jesse Holley. I heard that earlier.
And then we can go over to that Cleveland-Oakland game, though, from last week. I know it's tough for Coolhand here, but
I'm gonna go throw up in the bathroom real quick.
Baker Mayfield seems to actually be he seems to be the guy there for Cleveland. He's the only quarterback that I've seen in the past decade, just about, who's able to get a passing game going. They had 42 points. That's the most points they've scored, and I can't even tell you how long.
Yeah, I mean, he's played really well. It was really surprising that the defense played so poorly. They've actually been one of the better defenses all season. They just, for whatever reason, just couldn't stop Derek Carr. But I also had Amari Cooper and Jared Cook on my bench, so that was really disappointing. That's probably my most disappointing thing of the week.
What about this other rookie quarterback sitting up there in New York? How do y'all think he's doing?
Yeah, he looked really good against the Lions, but I mean, Baker's been the better player. I'd take Josh Rosen right now, I think, over Donald as well. I thought he looked all right for the Cardinals against the Seahawks.
Arizona's going to have some problems, though, because they have no O-line. They can't even get their star running back they just paid huge money to get any yards on the ground, even catch the ball at all. They just have nothing right now.
It's true.
And even against Seattle is not the Seattle we knew a couple of years ago, and even Seattle is able to beat them. Seattle doesn't have receivers. Their defense is in shambles.
I mean, the Seahawks defense is so bad that their own probably best safety they've ever had in their existence flicked them off being guarded off the field last week. So,
well, if I was him, I would have done the same exact thing too. He was trying to hold out, get money, because he is probably the best safety in the game right now playing at his position. He was leading the league in interceptions before he got hurt, and he was holding out, and they were saying, you know what, you're not a team player because you're holding out. And then what happens when he goes out and plays, he breaks his legs. So now when he does try and get a new contract potentially for another team, he's not worth as much. He had every right to. He has every right to be angry.
Looking ahead at the schedules here, we got a standing of the very last team in the NFL ranked right now is the Arizona Cardinals. And I look at their schedule, and I only see 3 teams that you could maybe see them sneaking in their first win with. Personally, I see the Vikings. If we get the crappy Vikings, which we saw 2 weeks ago, that could be a sneak win for the Cardinals. And the 49ers, that also could be another sneak, in my opinion. And then you always get the Chargers, which you don't know what you're going to get with them.
You mean the Los Angeles Chargers? Still doesn't sound right. That that plays in a soccer stadium that they can't even sell out. I mean,
I wouldn't count the Chargers out, though. I mean, Phillip Rivers has been throwing the ball pretty good. Antonio Gates is back, catching touchdowns again, it looks like. And that Melvin Gordon kid is, yeah, his rookie year was terrible, but he's been on fire since then. This is, his 3rd or 4th season in the NFL. He's been a top 5 rusher every year since his rookie season. The Chargers are actually a pretty good team, and they've got Keenan Allen, that new corner over there. Who'd they get? They have Derwin James, I think.
That safety, and they also don't forget they also have Joey Bosa rushing the passer, and he's been
and Melvin Ingram on their D line too, and they've just been they're a solid team. But I do think that sneak win could come in against the probably the 49ers with Jimmy G going down with a torn ACL.
I think that if you look at the Chargers, you're right about them not being as bad as most people will chalk them up to be. Because right now, they are tied in the standings with the Super Bowl defending champion, Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, but the Eagles are playing the Vikings at home this week. And we'll see if the Vikings show up for this game or not. They killed me in fantasy because they were playing the Rams. And the guy I played against has the entire Rams offense. And so, yeah, so I'm mad at them right now. But if the Vikings show up, they can beat the Eagles.
Oh, yeah, Vikings. You can't count Kirk Cousins out. That guy's been a top 5 quarterback in the league the past few years. And then those receivers, Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, you can never count them out. And if they can just get that running game with Dalvin Cook going, because they just can't seem to get that portion of it going. And then their defense does need to step up a little bit. Xavier Rhodes needs to be making more plays at that corner position because we all know that guy's a beast. He was leading the league in interceptions a couple seasons ago. And Defensive Player of the Year, I think he also got. So they need to step up on everywhere. But they're a team that can contend.
Here's something to even expand on what you're saying about the Los Angeles team. How bad they are, in attendance, they are ranked worst in the NFL.
They only play in like a 30,000 seat stadium right now.
Yeah.
So they're probably going to be the worst regardless, even if they were filling it up, which they aren't. That's the crazy part. Mm-hmm. And that's what they've got to do something to fix that. I know they're moving into that brand new stadium next year. Or is it the year after? And share it with the Rams. And I don't know. I'm not a big fan of sharing stadiums. I think I don't think it's good for either team that's there. It's the same with the Jets, with the Giants. I feel like if you're in the NFL, you should have your own stadium. Period. And
percentage-wise, for selling out their stadium, there's only a few that actually lead the pack for percentage of their stadium. So take it as you will. But you got the Denver Broncos.
Okay.
They're at 100%. The New Orleans Saints.
99.
They're at 100. 100%. San Francisco 49ers. 100%. Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, you got a lot of fake 49ers fans out there from their success in the 80s. So
that's true.
Yeah,
they travel well. Same thing with like the Steelers and the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys are still the number one show on TV, not just football. They're the number one show. I saw a thing fairly recently. In the month of September, they had 3 of the top 5 shows, not just football, shows that they were playing in when they played a game in the month of September. So, speaking of which, they're playing Sunday night. I bet it'll probably be the highest rated show of the month.
Wow. Because
they're playing Sunday night against the Texans. The rivalry, I'm using air quotes here, that both sides like to try to say that it is. But do you think it's a rivalry?
Oh, it's an in-state rivalry between 2 pro football teams, even though they're not in the same division. That's 2 Texas teams going at it right there. There's always going to be some sort of, pushing and shoving between the 2 of them. But I definitely think the Cowboys they're going to get a run for their money. Their defense isn't playing that good. Dak's not playing that good, and you're going up against a team that he hasn't been playing great as of yet this season, but we all know what Deshaun Watson can do. We all know what DeAndre Hopkins can do. And then that defense with Jadeveon Clowney and J.J. Watt coming back and being healthy, I think the Texans are going to stomp the Cowboys.
It's going to be a good game. We'll see what Deshaun Watson does. Kiki QT, also a Texas Tech Red Raider, by the way, has had an unbelievable week last week with Will Fuller out. We'll see if they can keep up the consistency. That's what's really been killing the Texans this year. They've just been incredibly inconsistent. And if they can just be consistent for the whole game, it should be a pretty handle Texans victory.
Now here's an interesting thing. What do y'all think is going to happen between my pick for the game of the week is Jacksonville versus Kansas City. You've got one of the best defenses in the league going against the best offense in the league right now. There's nobody better than the Kansas City Chiefs on offense.
I don't know the Rams maybe, but that's coming from a Tex fan. So I think it's going to be a great game. It's going to be unbelievable. It's the best of one versus the best of the other, at least in the AFC for sure. The Jags have been kind of, I think, baiting Pat Mahomes this week a little bit, saying, "Oh, he's the best quarterback ever. They're the greatest offense." All these things, just trying to get him, I think, a little overconfident, so that when he gets in there, Jalen Ramsey and all those boys are really gonna step up their game. I think they're semi-pumping themselves up by saying, "Yeah, he's so great. We need to be at our best to make sure that we can beat a player of his quality so far, at least in this season."
I'm going to have to go ahead and give it to KC because I'm an offense guy. And I think that whenever you're as hot as the Kansas City Chiefs are, that's confidence, and that's really going to take the lead there. It looks to be something that everybody wants to be at, especially in terms of ESPN. As soon as that guy takes a podium, they want to watch him. He is must-watch football.
I mean, I've been watching the guy for a long time, and I mean, when he made that left-handed throw in that game against
The Broncos.
The Broncos, that was amazing. Like, I felt like I should have got double fantasy points for that just because it was so incredible.
Well,
But
even then, some of the throws that this kid's making on a regular basis, running across the field, throwing across his body, back down the field towards Kelsey, and then the switch into his left hand as Von Miller has him wrapped up and is going down to the ground to make a throw to Tyreek. And it's the kid is just simply sensational. There is not a better quarterback playing in the NFL right now. As of right now, this guy is the best player in football.
We got some stats here that say the ticket prices per the game. For your saying here, obviously there's some games here that you wouldn't think that are that worthwhile your pennies if you're pinching pennies to go see it, especially if you really wanted to go see some of these games. But if you were in San Francisco, would you go ahead and throw the $22 at the game?
of course. I mean, the average family of four spends $508 at an NFL game. $500. And
Wow.
so if you can get tickets for super cheap, then do it.
Now, is there something over here that you think is overpriced for as low as that you guys see? Because I'm seeing some numbers here saying $161 to go see the Houston Texans. It's kind of ridiculous.
Well, that goes back to the quote-unquote rivalry. It's the battle for the Governor's Cup.
It's a state with two teams. Like, you're going to have all the fans.
And it's Sunday Night Football.
It's just one of those rivalries that no matter how bad both teams are, people want to go see.
Exactly.
Dallas and Houston.
I mean, you're talking about Texas and football. I mean, people will pay $22 to go see a high school football game here. I mean, Allen has 25,000 seat stadium. I mean, that's just high school. So
Texas love its football, man.
Texans love their football. That's damn right.
So what is there something you guys see here for as low as price that says this is a little bit too much? I don't feel comfortable paying that.
Definitely Chargers and Raiders.
Chargers in Oakland by far.
Yeah, $151 just to get in the gate, and that's the cheap stuff. Like, to deal with a bunch of guys that are probably going to get in a fight with each other. Nah, man, I'll pass.
I think Los Angeles Chargers, even if I came in there as a neutral fan, those are one of those things where it's such a intense rivalry right there. Any game between California brings out some very brutal fans. And I think just for your own safety, you have to pick the home team's jersey. If you have no skin in the game and you just want to survive, you stick the home team and you just fake it till you make it out alive.
I don't even care about home team. When you're talking about the Raiders, you're a Raiders fan if you're talking about the Raiders. These people are throwing people out of seats and over walls, man. They got spikes on everything they're wearing. Like, their whole outfit is a death trap. You side with them. I don't care who they're playing.
There's a reason why it's called the black hole. You go in, but you never come out.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then we got our Monday night game is going to be Washington versus New Orleans. What are y'all's thoughts on that one?
Are you guys talking about the handball or the football?
Football.
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 Soccer means, right?
No, football.
No, that
Football
is-
Americana.
That is a handball. I don't see you play with the food anytime.
You never seen the kicker?
Or the punter.
It is one.
They play sometimes.
Sometimes.
He calls handball.
Now, I think on this one, you really got to give it to New Orleans.
So that was one of the cooks here at Tony's in Bedford. please come down and make sure you enjoy a nice lasagna or get yourself a pizza.
I think we're looking at the Monday night matchup like you're saying there, Doc. I think you got to hand it to New Orleans. Drew Brees is one of the sneakiest guys. He's also extremely underrated in the NFL. I think that he gets the things done that people don't pay attention to. The only time that they really start going, oh, New Orleans is back, is whenever they make it to the postseason. But during the year, he puts up solid numbers.
I mean, he is about to break the touchdown record?
All-time passing yards record.
Passing yards record. I think he got the completions last week or 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, he's showing how great of a quarterback he is and how dumb the San Diego Chargers really were back in the day. Because they took him and LaDainian Tomlinson in the same draft.
Wow.
And they actually traded down with, that was the draft that the Falcons took Michael Vick, number 1. So they actually traded down to the 5th pick, got an extra second-round pick from the Falcons. And that's how they ended up with both Drew Brees and LaDainian Tomlinson.
I find it kind of interesting also here is that we look at the bye week is that both teams that have the bye coming up are teams that just played each other. So that could be bad news for the Bears because they're coming off an extremely offensive explosion.
I didn't know this was a movie.
Yeah, that could be bad for the Bears, but I mean, a bye week is a bye week. It just gives you more time to prep. So they're going to use it. The people who really need it are definitely Tampa because they got to figure out that quarterback situation down there. Jameis Winston or Fitzmagic. Who are you going to take? You can't be swapping them out at halftime. That doesn't help out anybody. They need to figure themselves out quick because they're going to be in for one hell of a season if they don't.
Jameis.
I think you got to look at the age difference between the two QBs, and that'll give you your answer right there.
Right. So speaking of trying to get to the playoffs, how about some of these baseball playoffs that are going on right now, huh?
We got some really hot games going on, and we had a wild card game going into the extra innings between the Milwaukee Brewers and the Chicago Cubs.
Well, in the Chicago Cubs, that was actually the extra regular season game, and then the wild card game, the Chicago Cubs also went to extra time against the Rockies. They just kind of shot themselves in the foot, and you know, the Cubs are so loaded and so talented, but they just, I don't know what it was. Their pitching, I think, was a little old, didn't help them any, but their hitting, they just couldn't hit anything. And it's really, really cost them. I mean, they should have been a quality team this year, and they really just stunk it up.
I think it's also a real travesty to say that a team season. Both teams' seasons came down to the line, and they were decided with both teams' best players out of the game. Charlie Blackmon and Anthony Rizzo were on the bench for the deciding decisions in the 13-inning game right there.
Well, but that also shows a little bit difference between the National League and the American League. Had that been an American League game, both those players would have been in there. And in the National League, because of, double switches and all that kind of stuff, they were out. And so should the National League have a DH? Should it be the same in both leagues? I mean, it really changed the pace of that game by having no DH. And so, I mean...
Yeah, I think that whenever they took out Anthony Rizzo is a huge mistake because in the bottom of the 13th, leading off and replacing him was Gore. Anthony Gore, a guy who has no hits in the MLB career ever, and he's replacing Anthony Rizzo.
He did have a heck of a steal in that game.
Oh, boy.
So they could try to tie it up, which did happen. They did tie up the game because of Gore, but it was a mistake. You don't take your best players out. I'm sorry. That's just something I've never believed in. You always have your best players in there when you need them the most. Taking out a guy who's been an MVP type candidate, who got you 100 RBIs this year, he needs to be in the lineup. He needs to be there when you need him. And, we needed to steal that base. You didn't need to steal that base as much as leave your best player in, your second best player in.
And now we compare something else here in baseball ideologies that is something that is shocking the baseball world. We saw a bullpen game fail, and then we saw a bullpen game work.
Right.
The Oakland A's adapted the bullpen game where they went with, instead of using a starting pitcher, they used a bullpen, which makes sense because the A's have no starting pitcher.
They were throwing Edwin Jackson out there. I mean, that guy's played for 13 different teams, and then that doesn't include all the minor league teams that he's played for in the last couple of years as well. I mean, he's basically been out of the game for 2 or 3 years, at least the major league side of things. And, Sean Manaea maybe, but they had no pitching. I don't blame him for doing, especially for a wild card game. It really made a lot less sense to me for the Brewers to do it in an actual divisional playoff game because you still got to go the rest of the series. And so how are you going to do that? You can't throw a bullpen game every time. It doesn't work that way. You got to get someone out there to eat some innings.
Yeah, I think what we saw was that the Tampa Bay Rays, when they introduced it in the beginning of the season, they kind of made a laughing stock out of the MLB, getting so many wins out, squeezing them out with the opener in the bullpen game. And then all of a sudden we're seeing it used in the postseason. There's something behind that's successful.
It definitely can work. I've said for years that eventually baseball is going to turn into an all-reliever game. But the way rosters are currently set up right now, you're just going to be burning those arms. And if you're going deep into the playoffs, eventually they're going to run out of steam. You can only pitch them so many times. You probably pitched them a bunch during the regular season. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. But if you're using these guys, basically every game, because if you're throwing bullpen games almost every time, eventually they're going to run out. Look what happened to Kenley Jansen last year. He was the best reliever in baseball last year until the last couple games of the season because they used him too much. He got burned out, and it cost him the World Series.
I think there's also something to be said about that pride and overuse. Is because whenever it comes to the ninth inning, they want to send out their best guy out there. Well, it doesn't always make sense because they want to give him saves. He always wants to get that magical save stat, and it doesn't make sense.
Well, because that's how closers get paid.
If you're sending a guy out there, if Los Angeles is sending a guy out there, their best pitcher, when they're playing the Padres, they got 3-1 leads the ninth inning, and then all of a sudden they send them out there, and they say, hey, go get the 7th, 8th, and 9th hitter. Why? That doesn't make sense.
Right. Save the inning. Let him save the pitches. Let him come out the next game. Maybe pitch a few more pitches than he would have if he'd pitched that game as well. Now I can understand when it's like 4 or 5-0. You want to make sure that you want to make sure you close the door. And there is something to be said for that because you don't want them to start a rally. You don't want them to start stuff, especially in the playoffs. Just hey, let's get this game over with. But a lot of times they're throwing these guys. Look at Josh Hader. That guy's out there, 2-3 innings at a time. He's a better version almost of Andrew Miller, which is saying something. But when's he gonna run out of bullets? There's only so many bullets in the chamber, and eventually you're gonna run out of bullets.
Speaking of running out of bullets, we saw Jeremy Jeffress almost blow the Brewers game. He actually did blow the lead. It was 2-0, and within 16 pitches, he gave up 2 runs.
Yeah.
Got pulled out of there. It was just whenever he walked away, the Brewers weren't losing the game. Had to go to extras. Thankfully, Soria came in and helped him out. But that was just something where he had never given up that many runs his entire MLB season.
Yeah, that's crazy. But it just goes to show you, the baseball season can get a little long. And so they're going to have to do something about that because, you got guys throwing 79, 80, 85 times in a season. It's a lot. It's a lot. And, throwing a baseball is not a natural motion. With pitchers, it's not if they get hurt, it's when. And so with new bullpenning and all this kind of stuff, you're going to have guys throwing more often. And we don't know the physical side of that yet. We don't know. If these guys are throwing 80 games a year, that the physical toll that it's going to take on their arm and how long they're going to end up lasting.
But a team there has managed to make sure their arms are unwavering, and that's the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah.
Through 18 innings, they've held the Braves scoreless.
Well, the Braves are garbage and got lucky to get into the playoffs in the first place. They just happened to be in a bad division. The Nationals should have been good, but they weren't. And they were competing with the Phillies, who, just a couple years ago were losing 110 games. So,
I agree with you there. I think that after Nick Markakis and Acuna, you look at that lineup and you don't really get afraid of any of those hitters. You know that they're contact hitters, so you just put it in there and let them put it in play. Half of the time, these Braves are getting themselves out.
Right. Exactly. And, it's going to make it easier for the Dodgers. But it took them a little while to get going this year. But they've actually been a pretty good team since the All-Star break. So the fact they were able to win the division helped them a lot, that they didn't have to play that extra wild card game, those kind of things. It's really going to help them quite a bit. But speaking, how about the two American League?
Yeah, I think in the American League we saw something really interesting. We saw the Yankees after they beat the A's and decided to celebrate by pouring beer all over A's fans. That they moved on and went to Boston. And I remember them very vividly chanting, "We want Boston." Well, they got what they wanted, and they got a loss.
They did get the loss, but they did come back. They did make it a pretty interesting game. Boston only won by a run. Aaron Judge hit one in the ninth to get it close off Kimbrel, nonetheless. So, and I am concerned about the Red Sox pitching staff. Chris Sale is still coming off injury, hasn't been the same pitcher. David Price has never been a good playoff pitcher. Craig Kimbrel has struggled quite a bit in the playoffs as well over his career, and so I am a little concerned for Boston. I think they'll still win this series against the Yankees. I still think they're the better team, but I think they're really going to struggle against whoever wins between the Indians and the Astros.
I agree with you. I think that Boston's coming out on top with this one. I got Boston as a 3-1 here.
3-1.
I can see them losing the game there, but I don't see them losing the series. That's for sure. Talking about predictions, we got two National League teams that are one win away from winning their division series, and that's kind of shocking because do you see one of them giving up another loss, or do you see both of them just locking down their wins and getting out of there?
I think Colorado gets one in Denver, but I still think that's a 3-1 series. But I think the Dodgers just walk through the Braves. I think that series is basically over already. So the Braves overachieved this year, and good for them. They got their young guys some playoff experience, which is going to be huge for them going down the road. I mean, they got some really young studs at them. But not having Dansby Swanson, I think, is hurting him pretty bad. And they're just not good enough to be a playoff team, to be frank. And the Dodgers are just the superior opponent.
I think the Milwaukee Brewers are on an extremely hot streak here.
Yes.
And they might just walk away with this if Colorado cannot find their offense, which going into Colorado is not an easy thing to do.
No.
You got the Coors Field effect, you got the altitude change, and that might shock the Milwaukee Brewers, and it might waken the Colorado Rockies bats up. So I agree with you. I'm going 3-1. Brewers get it. And Los Angeles, I just don't see them getting the sweep. I really don't. But although it would not shock me if that happened, I can say that right now. It would not shock me because Atlanta looks dead at the plate. They look awful. No runs in 18 innings. That's you can't get away with that.
Right.
So I agree with you there. I'm gonna say 3-1 Milwaukee. I'm gonna say 3-1 LA, 3-1 Boston. But I'm gonna say Game 5 for sure. But I'm gonna give it to Cleveland over Houston.
See, I've got the Astros in 5 games. I just they got the experience. Of course, I guess the Indians won the World Series 2 years before that, and they almost won it. I mean, they were dang close to beating the Cubs in that series. And the Indians are good, and they've been able to rest their guys really for the last month. I mean, they were in such a terrible division that it was almost a joke. But I mean, the Indians are good. They're going to definitely give the Astros a run for their money. The Astros pitching, I mean, they took Verlander out in the 5th yesterday.
Yeah.
That's I'm sure he wasn't happy with that. So we'll see how he responds if there is a Game 5. I'm sure he'll be starting. So
I think the biggest change there was that Verlander was on a fast pace. He's a fast-paced pitcher. He was burning through the Tribe players. Kluber, who was shaky all game, finally caught up to him. 2 hit bats and 1 walk batter. Was it 3 home runs or 2 home runs? It was just monstrous that he gave up there. Had a bad performance, very long inning. That kept Verlander on the bench. His arm probably went cold. He came out there, all of a sudden starts getting knocked around. The hit gives up. Boom, there goes the no-hit bid. Houston, he's got a quick hook.
Yeah.
That manager behind Houston right there, and in my opinion, he is one of the MLB's luckiest guys because he went from being a terrible, god-awful coach in Arizona.
Yeah, they were awful when he was there.
And Jeff Lono said, we want to hire a manager who's a yes man. When I say put this player out there, you put that player out there. When I say take him out, you take him out. And they got their man. So I don't think that he's the guy who really wants to let things get away because he knows he has to answer the GM and not himself.
Well, and look what happened to the Cardinals, too, after Jeff Luhnow left there. They really tanked for a little while, and they were always good. He leaves, all of a sudden terrible. Astros through the roof. So I think Jeff Luhnow deserves more credit than he gets for the Astros' success. He's managed to bring in some pretty talented players, develop some really talented players. I mean, he drafted Bergman, he drafted Correa. He didn't draft Altuve, but he was there for when Altuve really became successful, and he brought in those missing pieces last year that really helped them get over the top.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So I could definitely see that going to Game 5. Vegas odds right now have Houston winning Game 2 with Carlos Carrasco on the mound.
Fair enough.
Moving on, let's talk some basketball and hockey. We're gonna go ahead, slide on over here. We're gonna get some more extra voices in here.
Howdy, y'all. It's y'all's producer, Mickey. So, Coolhand, the Stars preseason's over, and they just played their first game against the Arizona Coyotes, and they put down the Coyotes, to say the least, 3-0.
I mean, they looked pretty good out there. We'll see how John Montgomery's offense and defensive philosophy come from college. Looked pretty good the first night, but we'll see how the hustle style plays over a whole season.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how his coaching style impacts the Stars season as well. How different do you think he is from the Stars' previous coach, Hitchcock?
I think they're in style, they're almost polar opposites. Hitchcock really believes sitting back, run out, almost like a counter offense. Sit back, hey, let's develop the play, and then let's boom out. Whereas Ty Montgomery's like, let's go all the time. He's talked about this year how the fourth line is going to play significantly more minutes than they did under Hitchcock because they're going to just be all out all the time.
It's certainly true, and Hitchcock, for those of y'all unaware, he is the coach that did get the Stars their first and only Stanley Cup. And remind me, Coolhand, was he the coach for the Stars when they got into the Stanley Cup against the New Jersey Devils, or is that someone else?
He was. That was back-to-back years, actually, that the Stars went to the Stanley Cup Finals. Hitchcock was great for that generation, but the game of hockey has changed. It's a completely different game than it was even 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, Hitchcock's coaching style really emphasized you really needed good forwards for his coaching style, and he had that in Mike Modano leading the charge. So,
greatest American player of all time.
I think that one of the things you got to recognize here is that before we get all excited about the Dallas Stars winning, you got to remember who they won against. They won against the Arizona Coyotes. The Arizona Coyotes.
The NHL-owned Arizona Coyotes at that.
An awful, awful team.
Right.
The team formerly known as the Phoenix Coyotes.
Also previously known as the Winnipeg Jets.
Also currently known as the please, I don't want to play another game. Nobody wants to watch this team.
They share that spot with the Florida Panthers.
Well, I'll put it this way. The Coyotes have been owned by the NHL for over 3 years. That means nobody wants to buy them. They're going to put in an expansion team in Seattle probably before the NHL is able to sell this franchise.
Do you think they'll just move the Arizona Coyotes to Seattle?
No.
Between contracts and between the stadium and the players, you have to keep them there right now. There's just too much signed illegally to Arizona.
Yeah, they do. They do have their stadium lease through the 2018-2019 season, so through this season. So they're definitely going to get another full season in their stadium in Phoenix? Or did they move it to Glendale?
It's in Glendale. It's right there by where the Cardinals play in Glendale, which is all still Phoenix. I mean, it's like the Dallas Cowboys playing in Arlington. I mean, it's still Dallas, but it's just a suburb.
Yeah. Glendale's is a nice area. I went there last year.
It is nice. I actually caught a spring training game out there a couple years ago. It was beautiful.
Really?
Hmm?
How about that?
About the Mavs, though, let's talk about the Dirk.
All right. So the Mavs currently still in their preseason in China, of all places. They're going to be playing their next preseason game in China against the Philadelphia 76ers. Their first game, they lost by only 6 points.
They actually played the game last night.
Their second game?
Yeah.
How'd they do?
They laid the wood to them pretty good. I don't know what the final score, but it was about they won by like 20-something points.
The Sixers or the Mavs?
Mavs.
I'm shocked. I'm not surprised. Well, I'm a little shocked that if what you're saying is true, and if they beat the Sixers that badly, I'm actually kind of surprised because a lot of the Mavs star players aren't in China currently. DeAndre Jordan isn't there due to a death in the family. We express our condolences to the Jordan family. Dirk is still out of the lineup due to the surgery he had at the beginning of, actually not the beginning of, but the tail end of last season.
You said doo-doo. I'm sorry. I just found it to be really, really funny.
Anywho, so the Mavs preseason's almost over. If not, how many more preseason games do they have? Do you know?
I have no idea. It's preseason basketball, man. It's hard for me to really care.
Fair statement, but if we're moving on to predictions for the Mavs, I have the Mavs as my sleeper team this year.
Your sleeper team? I mean, I think they might win 37-ish games, which isn't going to be good enough to make the playoffs in the West. The West is just so stacked this year.
I agree. The West is certainly stacked with
go ahead.
With LeBron moving to Los Angeles. You got the Spurs. While they did give away their MVP caliber player in Kawhi Leonard, and we have Doc here showing us the results of the 76ers Mavericks game.
Maybe 120 is what I was thinking.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought happened because I was looking at the scores on ESPN. I was like, Mavs lost. How about that? But the Spurs trading Kawhi to Toronto, it actually was not at the end of the day, it was not a bad decision for them, considering they got DeMar DeRozan, a very, very good player in the East. So I feel like that's a solid trade. But
and for 3 years, he's still under contract for 3 years. So that's the big part. Kawhi is only under contract for this next year.
Yeah, I think it was smart, the Spurs signing him to a multi-year contract. Although Kawhi, we all know he wants to play in Los Angeles. He doesn't want to be in Toronto. And that flippin' awkward laugh he gave at that press conference, I really want to know what the locker room's going to be like that year, this upcoming season. It's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, he clearly has no personality. But, it's going to be an interesting year in basketball, except for the Warriors.
Oh, God, the fucking Warriors.
But this might be their last run. I mean, KD's in the last year of his contract. Klay Thompson's in the last year of his contract. Steph Curry's in the last year of his contract. They're not going to be able to keep all of those guys.
And I think you got to also look at who also disappeared across the way. We got LeBron.
Yeah.
Taking them on. It's not going to be a walk through the park.
I mean, the Lakers are a good team this year. I'm not sure they can compete with that level of a Warriors team, especially when Boogie Cousins gets healthy and he's able to contribute for them. We're under the assumption that DeMarcus Cousins, when he comes back, is going to be the DeMarcus Cousins he was in New Orleans. But there is a chance he's going to be worse. Right. A lot of players, after did he tear his ACL? No, he tore his Achilles.
Ugh, well, I've heard stories that players just aren't that good after an injury like that. So we'll have to see.
That's essentially what happened to Kobe Bryant. That was really the beginning of the end of his career. was when he tore his Achilles. That just sounds like it sounds awful.
Yeah, and to your point about all the players and reaching the end of the contracts, I mean, let's be honest. Curry, Thompson, they're going to re-sign. They're going to, re-sign with the Warriors. I mean, they've been there for that long. They were, I believe, Curry and Thompson were drafted by the Warriors, were they not?
They were.
So I think it would be an incredibly stupid move for them to not re-sign. Kevin Durant.
See, I really feel like Klay Thompson's going to go somewhere else. I think he wants to be the man. And he's never been able to be the man at the Warriors. He's always been second fiddle.
A pretty damn good second fiddle.
Oh, he is a legitimate all-star in the NBA, borderline Hall of Famer if he was playing more minutes and having to be the man on a team. I think.
Yeah, he's a fantastic two-way player, a solid three-point shooter, a solid he can shoot within the paint, he can defend. Would I put him up there with one of the better defenders in the league? That's another question. But
not necessarily, but he is a good defender.
He is a good defender. So then, in terms of, what do you think about Kevin Durant resigning? Do you think he's going to resign or no? My money's on no.
I bet he plays for the Washington Bullets. Oh, I'm sorry.
What?
It's no longer the Bullets. It is now the The Wizards. The Wizards. Yes, the Washington Wizards. He's from that area. I think.
Pair him up with John Wall.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying Boston. I'm saying he goes to Boston.
You think? I mean, that's a good fit for him.
With Kyrie.
Well, if he goes to Boston, I bet they won't bring back Kyrie if Durant goes there because they're not going to have the cap space. If
Durant goes to Boston, then that technically means that Gordon Hayward, depending on how he does this season, is going to be put on the bench because they're both small forwards. If I know my
you can
players.
play multiple small forward. Like, it just kind of depends on what scheme you want to run.
Well, and especially in this positionless basketball that they play nowadays, I mean, it's really just getting your 5 best guys out there and just figuring it out.
True, and Boston, they have a good coach. Like, the fact that he didn't get I'm blanking on the coach's name, but the fact that he didn't get a single vote for Coach of the Year I think is an insult to what he did with that team, considering they lost.
The guy that actually won Coach of the Year got fired. It was Paul Casey for the Raptors. He got fired. So,
ouch.
Do you think they should have fired him?
No. He just got unlucky that they kept running into LeBron in the playoffs, and playoff LeBron is a completely different animal. I mean, there's a reason why he's been to 7, 8 straight finals. Like, even Jordan didn't do that. Now, I know Jordan took 2 years off in between to go play baseball, but even Jordan didn't do that.
Jordan also never lost to finals either, so.
That, and you say LeBron's a different animal in the playoffs. I kind of have to bring up 2011 because in the finals against the Mavs, LeBron just did not play defense. Magic Johnson said LeBron James needed to stop Jason Terry. Jason Terry. I'll leave you with that. Coolhand.
But also, Dirk was unreal in that series. I mean, that's the best I've ever seen anybody play in any finals ever.
Yeah,
I mean, he was unstoppable. He was shooting it from half court like it was nothing. Like, what are they supposed to do?
Yeah, he had a flu game along with Jordan. But yeah, LeBron in the playoffs, I'll agree that he's definitely a different player in the playoffs. But something I have to bring up, other than 2011, is just oh shit, I lost my train of thought. Where do you think the Lakers are gonna? What seed do you think they're gonna have going into the playoffs? 7th, 8th, 6th?
I'm going with 6. I got them as the 6th best team in the West this year. I think the Jazz are due for a decline. I think people are going to figure out how to stop Donovan Mitchell. So that's going to be pretty important. But they're definitely not better than the Warriors. They are definitely not better than the Rockets. They're definitely not better than, to be honest with you, I think the Timberwolves are due for a huge year this year, even though they're having issues with Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, I feel like Jimmy Butler will not be on the Timberwolves roster once the playoffs rolls around. But I do think it was smart of the Timberwolves re-signing Karl Anthony Towns to a multi-year contract because he's one of the better centers of the league right now.
Definitely.
And so to wrap up this segment, I have the Mavs as my sleeper team with a solid center, DeAndre Jordan. I think is a steal in the draft with Luka Doncic coming off the starting lineup along with Dennis Smith Jr. And we also have Devin Harris back. Well, he's coming off the bench, so we'll have to see there. And then Dirk, hopefully he'll put up the numbers for his maybe last or second to last season. But I think the Mavs are going to be if there was a wild card game in the NBA, I think the Mavs would definitely play in that. But there's not, so we may be hoping for an 8th seed here.
My shocker this year is that the 76ers are going to take the Warriors to 6 games in the finals.
And with that crazy prediction, I'm going to hand the microphone back to Dealer as he introduces our next segment.
Well, let's just go ahead and talk about riding the wave. Somebody that's she did it at 68 feet. Maya Gaviria.
That's unbelievable. Like that's almost a 7-story building on top of you. On top of you, not just like imagine looking up at a 6-story building over your head, and that's what was on top of her. On top. Like that's what you want to do when you want to kill yourself.
I think that's one of those fear things that just kind of take over, and you have no choice but to ride it out. Because stopping right there, it's not an option.
No, there's no
committed.
stop. Once you're in, you're in. And if you die, you die.
Sometimes you just got to ride that wave.
Nope.
Would you rather ride a 68-foot wave or have a shark chasing you, though?
Depends what kind of shark.
Baby shark?
Doot.
Well, they say the reason why we're able to survive in nature, like way back, 100 million years ago, was because we taste bad. And so most people don't die of actually being eaten by the shark. They take a bite of us, and then they realize how bad we taste, but we die from bleeding. Not actually being eaten.
Wow. Well, and another thing that might make you scratch your head on is that the Germans are now playing ping pong with their head, and they call it head pong.
If that's not the most German thing I've ever heard in my life, I don't know what is.
Do you get Das Bierboot when you win?
I don't know. I want to know how that conversation came about. Hans, do you want to play some ping pong?
Oh, no, but we don't have no paddles. How do we play with no paddles?
Use your head, Hans. Think.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, dirt makes perfect sense. Must use head.
My partner's paddle is broken. It's going to be a hard one to explain. Moving on, we also got something really interesting going on here. It's going to make your tummy fill up and break your belt. Probably break your wallet too. We're talking about that amazing head case where you spend 6 minutes in traffic in Dallas just trying to get off the highway, another 7 minutes driving through the longest parking lot of your life. You finally park all the way out in ZZ lot, which is right by WW lot. You have no idea what row you're in.
Like George W?
Yeah, and then you happen to see that train roll by, and you just jump on, even though it's completely full. So you're hanging on the edge because you want some fried food at the state fair.
Oh yes, the good old Texas State Fair. Who doesn't really love coming out and having a mini heart attack every time you eat something?
I think we got the Doc to explain what kind of foods we got going on at the state fair. Doc, go ahead. Let's hit us up with that.
Well, it looks like some diabetes here with you've got winner for the best taste for sweet, Era's con leche, which is pretty much just sweet crispy rice. Then we got a most creative winner, cotton candy taco. And this thing just looks out of this world. I would probably be able to eat 2 bites of it, and then I'd get sick. It just looks diabetes. That's just it.
Cotton candy, that is one of the things that the children always go, Mommy, I want some cotton candy. Cotton candy taco, what happened there? Did someone just listen to their 4-year-old and watch them put some cotton candy in the taco shell and go, by God, I think you're onto something?
I don't know, but it's cotton candy. It's got frosting. It's got all like the waffle cone taco shell, some chocolate sticks in there. you're going to be moving afterwards. You got that sugar rush going. Then we got some deep fried shepherd's pie. That looks like it's going to be, looks pretty tasty. Y'all should go check that one out. Shredded cheddar cheese and cream mixed into savory mashed potato pillows. It just, the description just keeps going. It looks so good. What else we got here? We got Texas Twanky. I don't know what it is, but I like the sound of it.
Sounds like a Twinkie almost.
Yeah, it's a Texas Twinkie, that's for sure.
Got some Texas twang on there.
Oh yeah, let's see here. Cornbread cake is baked to moist perfection, hollowed out and filled with culinary masterpiece of Tex-Mex grilled chicken white bean chili. Actually, that does sound really good. It ain't no Twinkie though. But other than that, those are the winners for the most part.
Which one of those, Connor, do you think is your must eat? If you were at the state fair and you said, I'm going to try something new, what's something that you're going to try?
Oh, gosh. Can I just say all of it?
You're a doc. You can't do that.
Don't worry, I'll just treat myself afterwards. I'll be good. That's how it works, don't you know?
That's how you save money right there.
Yeah.
The doc recommends eating everything at the Texas State Fair.
Yeah, and then you go and see the doc, and that's how we make our money. There we go.
It's like those dental ads that say 9 out of 10 doctors agree. You're that one doctor who says, no, go ahead, enjoy.
Please enjoy. I need a new car. I'm trying to get the new Maserati, so I really need you guys to eat us on healthy.
This is business 101. I need to create business for myself, not take it away.
Are you the kind of guy that after your client tells you that they're experiencing obesity problems that you send the Girl Scouts to their house?
They're not supposed to know that.
Speaking about things that we're not supposed to know, apparently the Earth is flat. Or so Kyrie Irving thought.
I don't know if he was just joking, but I don't care. It made for a hilarious story. I'm okay with it.
I'm pretty sure he also doesn't think dinosaurs are real. So he's that's that Duke education for you right there. Is really what that is.
I feel like dinosaurs are one of those things that you've grown up with from the very beginning. So you just kind of, deep down in your heart, you always want to believe that they're there. Maybe we just haven't found them yet. Because they're in our oatmeal. Just add water.
I hate that oatmeal. And I'm never going to eat it ever again just because you said that.
You really did just kind of ruin oatmeal for me for the rest of my life. I appreciate it, actually.
In the regard that regular oatmeal is ruined, or the one with dinosaurs was good?
Pretty much just across the board. I think the Land Before Time is also ruined for me now as well.
It never was on for me. But the thing is, he apologized for saying the Earth was flat. So do you think that someone stood up and go, hey, you owe me an apology?
Well, I mean, outside of maybe Newton or maybe some Einstein, I think he owes Einstein an apology. He's I mean, I don't think there's really anything to apologize for being an idiot, but that's really what it is. Yeah. We have pictures of the Earth being round, like actual pictures. Like dinosaurs, I might be able to let go just because we've never seen an actual dinosaur. We just have fossils, so we just assume. All right, well, that's just going to have to wrap up for us today. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We really had a great time with you guys in today.
And that'll do it for Doc over here. Thanks for listening, guys.
Dealers dealing out.
Cool hands on the slide.